Hi, everybody. First of all, I'm very happy that WAML, and not for the first time, included the section about Islam and gave us also to show what we are doing in our research concerning medicine and biomedical ethics. 3 years ago in Coimbra, Portugal, we even had a separate 2 days for the Islamic bioethics, and that was a very fruitful meeting adjacent to the WAML. So I'm thankful to Professor Noguchi, who allowed it then, and of course to Oren for inviting me here. Is that okay? Okay. So my לא, לעשות אותו ככה?
תעשי את זה פה, slideshow. זהו, זה from the beginning. זהו.
Okay. So my research stems from Islamic law. That's where I'm coming from. And I'm researching mainly contemporary fatwas, which are equivalent for piskei halacha of rabbis. But of course, even the contemporary fatwas rely on classical fiqh, which means Islamic law, which is a very wide literature from the 9th century until today, and it's very dynamic. So in this short presentation, I'll try to survey the difference that I noticed in attitudes to sexual disabilities from what was in medieval times and what we can see today. So usually the disabilities or the sexual disabilities will be adjacent to the chapters on marriage and divorce, and the question will always be whether a disability is an impediment to marriage, or whether because of a disability that the wife or the husband found in the spouse, there are legal grounds to ask for a divorce. So there are, generally speaking, 3 groups of disabilities mentioned in relation to marriage and divorce, and there are disabilities that can appear in women, disabilities that can appear in men, and disabilities that can show up in both men and female. In the male diseases, we can see disabilities such as impotence and castration and things like that. In the wife, we can see all kinds of problems impeding penetration. It means that she has all kinds of additional growth or pieces of flesh blocking her vagina and other problems. And for men and women together, we can see problems such as dermatological diseases, and mainly diseases that can be contagious, that if they have sexual contact, then the wife can be contaminated, or the man, and also junun, which is a general title for all kinds of mental disabilities. So in the classical times, in medieval times, being infertile for the woman in particular, but also for the men, is not viewed as a disability that would cause the end of marriage. Children are always considered a gift from God, and any pregnancy is held to be a miracle that God decided to grant a couple a child or to withhold. And it says in the Quran that God is the one who makes one fertile and who withholds children from another. So the fact that medicine knows exactly how children are born must take into account always that God is a player in the whole process, and if God wills, there will be a child. So being infertile is not a problem in classical fiqh. What is a problem? A problem is if the man cannot penetrate the woman, or if the woman is not penetrable. These are the problems. So the problems are in the performance during sexual conduct between men and women, not regarding the result. There are chapters in the Fiqh where the Prophet Muhammad is quoted as saying that a man asked him, "I'm sterile and I want to get married. What's your decision?" And the Prophet answered, "As long as you inform the woman and get her consent, it's okay." That means that even being married without the outcome that is expected from this social institute, meaning children, if both sides agree and know about it from the beginning, then there is no deception and it is okay. So procreation is not a legal stipulation for the continuation of marital life. While a disability that hinders or prevents sexual intercourse between married spouses may serve as legal grounds for divorce at the beginning of marital life. That's an important thing to mention, because even if a man functioned sexually okay once in his marriage, and after that he was hit by a car and became paralyzed for the rest of his life, he will never be considered anin, meaning impotent, based on that once in his marriage he functioned correctly. Sexual intercourse is not only a fulfillment of God's command to produce offspring, but is also believed to have many physical, spiritual, and psychological benefits for both partners if conducted according to Islamic legal guidance. If we move to contemporary sources, the fatwas of the last 2 decades show a change of attitude to male sterility. Several muftis, the muftis are the people, the sages, the ulama, the learned scholars that are eligible to give answers on legal debates. Several muftis, mainly in the beginning of the 21st century, mainly Saudis, have recognized the husband's sterility, ukem, as a sort of harm, darar, to the wife, since she is doomed to life without progeny. By the way, if the woman is infertile, in Islam there is the provision that a man can marry up to 4 women at the same time, so maybe the second or the third will bring him offspring. But if the wife marries a man who happens to be sterile, she is doomed to life without children. And the main reason women get married according to Islamic law is A, to enjoy illicit sexual relations, and B, to become mothers. Other muftis hold that the husband is not to blame for a disability that he cannot control, such as sterility. Rather, the wife must persevere, and the marriage remains valid so long as penetration, dukhul, has taken place, even only once in a couple's marital life. There are few, but there are some contemporary scholars who deny the right of a wife to ask for termination of marriage on the grounds of her husband's sterility. Thus, the difference that I've noticed between classical fiqh and contemporary Islamic law is that nowadays, sterility of the man is held by several scholars to be darar, that means harm, as if he were a drug addict, or if he were beating her. That would be considered darar and will give her the legal grounds to sue for divorce or to ask the court to order separation between them. How much time do I have? Okay. So I'll quote one fatwa from the Syrian Mufti Wahba al-Zuhaili that died recently. He was asked about a woman who acknowledged that her husband treated her well, but complained that they had no offspring. The problem, she stated, lay with both of them. The only solution recommended by physicians was in vitro fertilization, IVF, but she was afraid of its negative physical and emotional side effects. Also, she knew that the IVF success rate is only 25%. Is she entitled to refuse this treatment, or does her husband have the right to force her to undergo treatment? The Mufti responded that IVF procedures using husband's semen and wife's ovum are permissible and often successful. He advised the wife not to refuse treatment, but at the same time said that the husband may not force his wife to undergo it because pregnancy should be the outcome of mutual desire. Likewise, abstaining from pregnancy must be mutually agreed. In other words, it is okay also for a couple if they decide not to have children for any reason, as long as both of them consent to that. If I come to the conclusion, in his book, which I recommend, Islam and New Kinship, Morgan Clark proves that this socially expected outcome, pregnancy, is true today too. A medical anthropologist that he is, Clark surveys the attitudes and behaviors of various religious groups in Lebanon regarding new reproductive technologies at the start of the 21st century. He explains inhibitions against NRTs among Jews, Christians, Sunnis, and Shiites, and he also mentions the technologies that each group's theology supports or forbids. It appears that those who seek to use NRT are more motivated by and concerned with the social expectation than with the legal guidance. In other words, a baby is more important than the sexual performance. In 1991, based on her field research in Cairo, Marcia Einhorn recorded the misery of women who are childless in the Egyptian society. They were trapped between polygamous marriages or divorce, at the husband initiative, of course. If she was infertile, but at the same time expected to remain with her husband and to hope for his love if he is infertile. That is the double standard. Sexual performance and reproduction, according to Einhorn, are not distinct issues. She came to that decision about 18 years after she wrote the first book about al-Ghaib, the mother of the not existing child. But 18 years later, she says that sexual performance and reproduction are not distinct, and the modern Arab family is experiencing the shift of marital praxis towards love and mutual respect, even in the absence of desired children. And she shows very interesting things that men would go all kinds of sexual surgeries, even though the problem was with their wife and not with them, just to stay together. That means that sometimes love and friendship is enough for marriage. That's what she found. The fatwas that I reviewed, especially for this essay, do not support Einhorn's recent conclusions. Procuration emergence from recent fatwas as so important that the classical legal emphasis on sexual performance, dukhul, rather than on its outcome, a baby, is almost absent in the contemporary ethical discourse. In the 21st century, when pregnancy can be achieved by means of NRTs without a male's penetration, when those in need of NRT can choose from among several available procedures, pregnancy is given more attention in the fatwas than the sexual performance of either spouse. Human rights advocates and feminists have contributed to this change, since women have upheld motherhood as a natural human right, and since middle-class working women are at the present time economically less threatened by divorce than women were in the past. means women are working, and if they don't like the marriage, they can opt out on their own. Yeah, I'm coming to the last lines. Thus, if a marriage does not produce a child, a wife is more likely to opt for termination of the marriage and to try to have a child with another husband. However, as the feminist scholar Ziba Mir Hosseini has explained, only the elite and the minority of highly educated women have the luxury to challenge patriarchal norms. Thank you.